Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here with my co-host, MonstersReview.
What's up?
And our very special guest today, Eric.
Hello, hello.
So, welcome to the reboot, revival, rehash, cast. So, how you guys doing tonight?
I am doing very well, thank you for asking.
Monsters?
I've been doing pretty good too, just, living like Larry, living like life to the fullest.
Okay, so as usual, I'll plug our little Discord. We have a Discord, there'll be a link down in the description. If you want to join, you can comment on the episodes we talk about and be a part of the conversation, get some of your stuff on air here and ask some questions, that sort of stuff. We also have our #TheRecast on Twitter, which I didn't use last time when I tweeted out the episode because of YouTube's auto-tweet. I gotta fix that this time.
Yep, should be in the upper left corner.
Yep. Unfinished business for last time. So I edited this out, but just for clarity, so everyone knows, I definitely did screw up counting in terms of the score of the Ben 10 off. Monsters did win, and
somehow.
in the weighted sense, like at the handicap, you won. In terms of just getting like straight reboot or original, of course, Kuro got every single one of them right. So
yeah,
in a way, you're both winners. But I thought, I edited that, and if you go back and look, you can definitely see where I made the edits. But I tried to smoothen it out, fix that sort of thing. We're gonna try to be a little better about keeping a score going forward. So Eric, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, because you're not a YouTuber.
Yes.
So our audience may or may not know who you are. So go for it.
Yeah, so I personally don't have a big presence on YouTube. My main presence is over at my WordPress. I have an Adventure Time reviewed blog where I kind of go through each episode of Adventure Time from beginning to end. Currently, now I'm about midway through season 7, so I'm more than halfway done with the actual show, which is, there's a lot of episodes, so obviously that's feels like a big accomplishment. And then also my other presence is I'm big into drawing, big into making comics as well. So I have an Instagram where I post most of my comics out. Not a ton of, presence is actually brought into that. It's kind of just like a free place for me to kind of share artwork and different stuff like that.
And there will be links to both of those in the description down there. But yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Of course. We've got a pretty exciting podcast tonight. Since the Adventure Time finale is airing tomorrow, assuming we upload this on the correct time. So we decided to do a little Adventure Time themed discussion, and we have Slumber Party Panic versus From Bad to Worse, the 2 Candy People Zombie episodes. Of course, we also have some news, we have some questions, and we have, leading into, just what we've been watching this past week. Monsters, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been super busy in the past week, so I really haven't had the time to watch anything. However, I did rewatch 10 Minutes of Animation, that being the music video for Weird Al's Trapped in the Drive-Thru, if you've ever seen it.
Yes!
I love that song. I love the music video. It's still just as good as I remember it being.
Trapped in the Drive-Thru being a parody of Trapped in the Closet
by R. Kelly. Yeah.
Yep, and I don't know anything about the original song aside from the South Park references. I just know that Trapped in the Drive-Thru is great. The animation on that is great. It's a song with a lot of dramatic pauses and stuff, and the animation captures that pretty well.
Just takes a lot of twists and turns.
All right, that's what you got this week?
That's what I got.
All right, how's the Planet Sheen review coming?
It's I didn't work out on it at all. I'm just I didn't spend any time on it in the past week, but it's a work in progress.
All right. To be fair, you have been editing our podcast very beautifully, so
thank you.
Good job with that. Eric, is there anything you wanted to talk about that you watched in the past week?
Yeah, so something I've been watching the past month or so that I've been particularly ecstatic about, and you actually covered it on your channel before. I've been watching a lot of Harvey Beaks lately. And I actually just got to the final episode of the series. And it's just a really nice, charming, well-drawn cartoon, and it just really, like that ending, it was very nice and it added good closure to the series. But it just kind of made me mad because I was like, Nickelodeon really ended up screwing over this series, and I really wish I could see more of this because I was just really enjoying what I was seeing the past month or so with it.
Nice. Yeah, I never actually ended up finishing the show. I got through I got through all of season 1. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's the kind of show that I want to like pace myself on. It's not really like too marathon-y of a show.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like with shows like that and Weird Bear Bears, if you watch too much of it at a time, you just kind of watch it and then get burned out and then never come back to it. Which I guess is what I did because I never went back to it. But I do intend on it someday.
Yeah.
I've seen like the first dozen or so episodes, and yeah, it's a really charismatic show. I love C.H. Greenblatt.
It just really, C.H. Greenblatt, I feel like, I don't feel bad for him because he's gotten a lot of great gigs, and I mean, having your own show in general is great, but I feel like, you know, his own individual ideas, which are Chowder and eventually Harvey Beaks, are two concepts that, I mean, Chowder had a pretty solid 3-season run, like, during the time period, that's the typical length for a Cartoon Network show. But I really feel like, you know, he hasn't gotten his full chance to, like, really shine. I feel like even Chowder was cut short. So I really hope that he does, like, get a decent gig where he's able to have, like, a long, fulfilling career in whatever he is working on.
I mean, it's funny because the thing that I would say, at least to me, he's most known for is Billy and Mandy, which is not a show he created, but his hands were in it pretty far.
Yeah.
I mean, he did some SpongeBob, too.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
Season
true.
3.
Well, in particular, also, Fear of a Krabby Patty.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that episode reeks like C.H. Greenblatt.
In the best possible way.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, cool. So I've been continuing to watch Ben 10. So, we watched season 1 last week.
Awesome.
Or we watched Big Tick last week. I watched season 1 and prep for that. This week I watched season 2. Dude, Ben 10 season 2 is amazing. Like, I was genuinely blown away by it. Season 1 had like a few good episodes, a few really good episodes, but a lot of it, like, the first Animo episode is like, whatever. He's bringing to life, like, these things from a museum and, like, woolly mammoths, and it's like, I've seen this. They had, like, the lake monster episode, which is like, oh, okay, a lake monster episode. That's something. And then, there's, like, a few episodes in there that are like, eh. But this one, like, Kevin is a recurring bad guy. He appears, like, 4 times. Vilgax comes back in a pretty awesome way. There's lots of messing around with Ben's watch. Like, he breaks it in one episode. He uncovers the master control in another episode. There's, like, a lot of that really science fiction-y stuff. He gets 2 new aliens in the season, and he goes to space twice. Like, season 2 of Ben 10 feels like it would be like season 5 of any other show, where it feels like they're kind of pulling out all the stops. And it works. It's so cool in that sense. Although I will say the water episode in season 2 also stinks. So in both water episodes, jerks steal something from aquatic creatures, and aquatic creatures get mad. That's both episodes. And it's like they only write them because they need an excuse to pull out Ripjaws. Because season 2 is also where, like, Ripjaws and Ghost Freak and the lesser, like, aliens get referenced, like, even less. I mean, Ghost Freak has his own episode, but, like, in terms of just being used by Ben, it's a lot more like, oh, he's gonna be Heat Blast, oh, he's gonna be Four Arms. Cannonbolt shows up in, like, every episode after he gets unveiled. So yeah, no, I was really digging it. There's I do want to point out that, did you know that Ben and Gwen have the same exact birthday in the same exact year on the same exact day?
Even though they're not twins.
No, they're cousins.
They're cousins, yeah.
Which screams to me that there's something funny going on in the Tennyson household. Like, that's a little suspect show. I don't know. And they have rhyming names. Like,
were they conceived on the same day too?
Well, maybe there's like a twin separation thing or something,
I don't know.
Or something weirder than that, possibly. I mean, I don't know. Knowing this show,
the fate of the universe.
Grandpa was freaky with an alien, so like, I don't know. But I just thought that would be funny to point out. But yeah, super happy with that. Although what bums me out, okay, seasons 1 and 2 of Ben 10 on Hulu, HD, widescreen, look beautiful. Season 3 and 4, or at least season 3, not widescreen, not HD. Can't find that anywhere. And it's like, I don't mean to be a snob, but it's like,
if it's in HD, why not just put it there?
I don't know. Maybe it's never been officially released in HD, even though they made it in HD. I don't know what the deal is, but specifically going from the season 2 finale right into the first episode of season 3, you see like a big visual dip from HD to SD. So I'm probably going to give it like a little bit of time before I go and I watch season 3 and 4. If I have to watch it in standard def, that's fine. But like, going directly from it's just kind of like I get this feeling of like, well, I maybe like somewhere I could find these episodes and they look better and there's parts of the screen that are missing and like, but that's the snob in me.
Yeah.
All right. You guys ready to move on to the news?
Yes,
Sure.
sir.
Okay. So we have actually a few pieces of news here, although they're not, each one of them is kind of like very basic. So the first two things that we'll talk about at once are basically, Alex Hirsch got poached by Netflix, although he's doing something for Fox, but he's now signed on with Netflix to make, it looks like, multiple shows. And then also, Justin Roiland got his show greenlit for Hulu. So
Even though that's being produced by Fox.
Right. What is going on, Fox? What are you doing? But yeah, his show Solar Opposites, which looks Rick and Morty like. Mm-hmm. And he's still going to be doing Rick and Morty, all 70 episodes. So I definitely want to talk about this because it seems to be, I don't know, you guys tell me if you've noticed this, but it seems to be that, like, a lot of times, especially with streaming services, but even, like, with Adult Swim, they seem to be asking more out of creators these days, like ordering tons of episodes, ordering multiple shows from the same creator. They seem to be asking a lot, and I don't know, like, what do you guys think? Am I crazy?
Yeah, so I feel like I kind of get where you're coming from in the sense that I feel like it's inevitable that if you have a series on Netflix, then it's going to have a ton of episodes. Like, just with series I've seen as of recently, like, it's almost inevitable that every series you watch will have multiple seasons just because I guess there's a demand for tons of, like, episodes and production of episodes on Netflix, if that makes sense at all.
Well, I think in particular Rick and Morty, it's the most popular show that Adult Swim has ever had besides their Fox reruns. It's the most successful original programming they've ever had. So, I mean, I think it makes sense from a business standpoint that they're going to renew it for loads of episodes and loads more seasons. I'm not sure what other cartoons they've been doing this with. I know that with like Venture Bros, they usually take a few years in between seasons and they're not too many episodes. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably watch Solar Opposites just because I love Justin Roiland's stuff. I know that he's pretty much the creative voice of Rick and Morty, and I know that Dan Harmon plays a large role in it too. But I think that he's mostly there to kind of just keep things in check and make sure that the writing is good. I don't know, because like
Harmon's not
the original
keep things
Rick and Morty pilot that was made at what was it called? The
Doc
thing
and
that,
Marty.
Doc and Marty, yeah. That was, even though Dan Harmon was the person that was running that festival or group or whatever it was, that was Justin Roiland's pilot, and he very much has like the oh yeah and like all the weird names and stuff like that. Like that's totally Justin Roiland, and that's some of like the humor that people dig in Rick and Morty.
I mean, I guess the thing is just what I've seen a lot lately. And Disenchantment falls in line with this too. Is that it's like, I don't know, like, I like Alex Hirsch and I'm excited to see what's coming from him, but I'm a little worried that if he's signing on for multiple shows, and I don't know what's going on with the Fox thing, but if he's going to be working on the Fox show, he's going to be working on at least one Netflix show. It looks like possibly more than one, and it's like, I mean, Gravity Falls was fantastic, but that's all
right.
There's nothing to prove that he can churn out hit after hit. Like, just because a creator did a really good job at one show or two shows, that doesn't mean you should sign them on for like 5 shows, or you should ask for 70 more episodes of Rick and Morty or whatever. I feel like there's this high demand right now of like, well, you're an auteur, right, of this really good show. give me 3 more of that. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm happy that these people are getting chances, but I'm just a little worried and a little skeptical that perhaps a lot of these streaming services and a lot of these networks are putting the cart before the horse with like this person that made one good thing and giving them too much creative freedom, which is a thing.
Yeah. And like I respect Alex Hirsch a big deal. And the way that Gravity Falls evolved into the whole cryptic mess that they had by the end was pretty insane. But I don't think that he's going to do more of the cryptic mystery stuff. Maybe he will later down the line, but at least in the present, I don't think he's going to revisit that. So I wonder what other directions he might take.
Right, and I also do want to say that Hirsch, he wanted the 2 seasons for Gravity Falls, and it worked out that way. Like, the 2 seasons worked for him. Other networks are not going to be happy with a 2-season show.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, it's like, I don't know who, like, obviously Disney might have been a big part in the delays and stuff, but Gravity Falls was 2 seasons and 40 episodes, and it spanned over the course of 4 years, you know?
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't mean to be like a downer or anything. In terms of Roland's show, I'll probably check it out. And I definitely want to see what Hirsch comes up with, but I am just a little worried that it's like, there's a progression to these things. You know, I mean, yes, Seth MacFarlane worked on 3 or 4 shows at the same time, or 3 shows while making Ted, but he wasn't, you know, those were shows that have gone on for seasons. You know, they'd already been well established, and he was mostly just voicing characters at that point.
Right.
And that's because Family Guy's budget is like $10 worth of animation at this point.
Go animate.
Goodness. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's interesting that, like, I think it is good that we are getting this like auteur filmmaking, and it's good that we are getting these kind of like newcomers having chances. I worry about them being pushed too far, basically, because like I mean, this is what I come back to a lot with the Rick and Morty 70 episodes. It's like, well, you know what? There is enough in the world of Rick and Morty to fill 70 episodes. Is there enough for the creative team to not get burned out for making 70 episodes? I don't think so. I think they will get burned out hard, and the show will suffer.
Well, the first thing is, I mean, we all know how much Dan Harmon gets burnt out. The second thing is, like, they couldn't handle 10 episodes in, 2 years? So how are they supposed to handle, like, 70 over the next 5?
Unless we're talking about 10 years to do the 70 episodes, and it's just like...
9 seasons.
Hey, man, Rick was not kidding when he was like 100 years Rick and Morty in that first episode.
Yep.
All right, so the other piece of news we have, and this was unexpected. This was weird because I only learned about this Verve thing like last week. Verve launched a Nickelodeon channel, a Nick Splat channel for the classic Nicktoons, Nick game shows, and live action shows on their streaming service. Do you guys know what Verve is?
Faintly, yeah.
I have actually never heard of Verve.
Yeah, I was in the same boat.
They have like Rooster Teeth and Crunchyroll and a few Channel Frederator and a few other things on there.
Okay.
From what I can tell, Verve is kind of like, it's a little different from, it's a streaming service, but it's a little different in that it seems to be that if you just want a specific thing, you could just subscribe to that or you could get the whole subscription and get a bunch of things. And Verve it just kind of seems to be whatever they can get with a main focus on internet-based content, like Cartoon Hangover, Geek and Sundry, Nerdist, things like that. But then they also have Nick Splat, they have Crunchyroll. So I don't know, it seems to be just this really weird mishmash of things. But from what I can see on here, it looks like we have Ah Real Monsters, Cat Dog, Doug, Wild Thornberrys, Rocco, Angry Beavers, Keenan and Kel, All That, Amanda Show, Kablam, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Double Dare, and Nick Arcade. Those seem to be, and Clarissa, Hey Dude, Shelby Woo, and Solution Shorts. I know it's a long list. I didn't expect it to be that long. And they said that new titles are going to be not just added, but also rotated, which take that to mean whatever you know, yeah. Oh, that's funny, though. On the All That, which is like the first thing I see on this channel page, it says All That is an all-kids sketch comedy created by Brian Robbins, Dan Schneider, and Michael Tolan. I don't know that you want Dan Schneider's name that big on your service.
Right.
That's not a very marketable name these days. Whether things are true or not, it's just not.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think?
I saw on Twitter, shout out to Nick and Moore on Twitter, but I'm pretty sure he tweeted out something saying that, like, because they had this big animated promo for it, and apparently not all of the shows that they showed in the promo are on there yet, and of the shows that they do have on there, it's only like the first season or the first few episodes, and like, I know that you guys said that it's going to rotate and they're going to add new titles and stuff like that, but at the price point, I'm not sure if it's worth it.
Personally, I'm kind of like ecstatic about it, just in the sense that, I mean, I don't know if I'd ever actually purchase or subscribe to the Verve, but in the sense that I'm glad that Nick Splat is actually finally getting kind of the recognition that it should, instead of just being like, you know, like pushed aside to Teen Nick for the wee hours of the night to play Hey Arnold, Rugrats, and Doug.
To be clear, so the streaming service, just to get Nick Splat is $6. So, and then the whole streaming service is what? It's like $9.99. Yeah, $9.99, $10. So here's the thing: Nick Splat on its own, for me, falls into that same. I mean, almost exactly the same. Everything I have to say about the Boomerang app. It's the same thing. It's similar price point, but it doesn't have all the episodes of the shows, which is confusing. Its selection. I will say its selection is more than I want to see from the Boomerang app. There are more shows on here that I'm interested in, but it's also interesting to point out that Nickelodeon does have a lot of those Shout Factory DVDs of classic shows.
Exactly.
I own Rocco. I don't necessarily need to stream it. But I am happy, like you said, Eric. I'm happy that this is somewhere. Like, for $6, if they add a show or two on here, or if I really get nostalgic for Clarissa Explains It All or what have you, for $6, I pay for a month, I watch what I want to watch, and I unsubscribe. Or if there's something else on Verve, because unlike Boomerang, this isn't just Nickelodeon. You know, there's other things. If there was something else on there that I really wanted to see, it'd be nice to know that this is on there as a nice bonus. So for me, it's just kind of like, well, it's a borderline right now. It's if I'm interested in what's on there, I'd subscribe to it for a month. If they add more stuff, and they undoubtedly will, you know, who knows what they'll take away. But if they add more stuff, it could potentially be a just like regular streaming service for me.
Yeah, well, doesn't Nickelodeon also have a bunch of shows on Hulu as well? I don't know how that's going to play out.
I think they have My Life as a Teenage Robot.
Maybe it's more of the modern Nick stuff.
Yeah, I think they have Rugrats. They don't have a ton. It's kind of a random selection. It's like Rugrats,
Planet Sheen.
Yeah, Planet Sheen.
Tough Puppy, Penguins of Madagascar, Breadwinners. So it's a lot more of the like late 2000s to now. Although they have Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah.
So it's on there, but it doesn't seem to really be much overlap, basically. But I mean, I will also say, and I mean, this is like, I am a sucker for the old Nick game shows. Like, I love that stuff.
Yes.
And there's like nowhere to see it. Like, it used to be Nick Gas, and now it's like
nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did they release DVDs of this stuff? They usually don't.
They used to show some of it on the 90s or all that, and like at the very, very beginning of the Splat when it used to be called that, but now it's not even in the rotation anymore.
Yeah.
But I can watch Legends of the Hidden Temple all day.
Oh, wow. Kablam is on here. That's a surprise. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, they have a bunch of episodes. Because you guys know the whole thing with Kablam, right?
Yeah. How it was like missing.
Well, because Kablam it's an anthology series. And so they have to, in order to air it in full anyway, they have to either cut it up to cut out the things they no longer have rights to, or attain the rights to everything. You know, or I mean, I'm sure they have like partial rights or something, like they can negotiate, but it's a messy situation versus just like, well, we have the rights to air Doug, so let's put Doug, you know. So that surprises me, and that's nice. Hey, that's a little more obscure. So I don't know. I'm happy at this. I'm not saying it's a get just yet though.
I agree.
All right, you guys ready to move on to the questions?
Yep.
Okay, so our first question is from Yellow Pancake, and this is going to kind of gear us a little more towards Adventure Time here. Actually, you know what? Why don't I do the other question first, so then the other one can gear us towards Adventure Time. So, Christian Goken says from our Discord, why do a lot of anime and cartoon adaptations tend to lean on the worst side of things, even things that sound great on paper, like the Persona 5 or Danganronpa anime. Now, I don't think either of you guys are familiar with Persona or Danganronpa, right?
I'm not.
No.
Okay, so I'll answer that part of the question, and then you guys can just talk about if you want, because in general, he's asking, like, just, adaptations in general, not necessarily like reboots, but adaptations from movies, which Nick did certainly enough of, or other places. I'll talk about the games to anime, basically. The thing is just that, like, with Danganronpa, and I'll also use a little more mainstream example, like Phoenix Wright. The problem is that those games are very, very, very story based, and they're not, like, a lot of the enjoyment of those games comes from big twists and big surprises and big things that happen in the plot that once you know them, like, I didn't see the Danganronpa adaptation season. I saw the season that was a sequel to the second game, because Danganronpa is confusing. But it seemed to suffer from, trying to take something that's like one big long experience and then chopping it up into episodes. It's just, I don't know. It's the adaptation from video game to like any piece of media seems to always be troubled because the stories are just kind of told differently. And in Danganronpa's case is that they have hours and hours and hours of gameplay to tell you the story through text boxes that you can opt in and out of which text you want to actually see. So trying to condense that down into a series doesn't necessarily convey the same idea. You don't get as good a sense of each of the characters as you do when you can literally go and talk to any one of them in Danganronpa. So it's a tricky thing to do. And if you ever want to see a great movie on adaptation, it's a movie called Adaptation. It's got dual Nicolas Cages in it. But it's also one of the most insightful, poignant movies I have ever seen. I saw it in one of my film classes, and I highly suggest it. So what do you guys think? Do you have any opinions on adaptations and why they usually suck?
Yeah, so, I can, the last adaptation, well, I don't want to say the last adaptation I've seen, but the last adaptation I can really remember hating was the live-action Beauty and the Beast, which is kind of the epitome of an adaptation gone wrong, in my opinion, just in the sense that it's drawing on its source material, but it's doing considerably less. So it's Beauty and the Beast, but they try and add certain new tidbits and stuff, but it's drawing away from what actually made the film so special in the first place, which the animated Beauty and the Beast was great because it told a story from beginning to end with really nice songs, really good characters, really good, portrayals of the characters in certain situations, where the live-action Beauty and the Beast tried to add all these little bits of information, what happened to Belle's mother, all this kind of stuff, but they didn't focus on, like, why we should actually care about the characters. The acting and just what was put into it, it didn't seem like they were actually doing more with it because they were competing against an already perfect movie, basically.
Yeah, building upon that, there's a ton of those cartoon to live action movies that are just awful. If you look at the Garfield ones from the 2000s, like Garfield the Tale of Two Kitties, the 4 Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, like the Squeakquel, Road Chipped, the Chipwreck, and then also the Smurfs ones that came out recently with Neil Patrick Harris.
Those aren't the most recent Smurf movie.
Oh no, there was one called like The Lost Village that was like
different,
fully animated, but the live action hybrid animated ones.
That's the saddest thing, is that you have to say that is not the most recent live action CGI hybrid of the Smurfs.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? I mean, a lot of these fail in the same way that reboots fails because networks and producers go in with the same mindset of like, well, we don't have to work as hard because the story's already there. Like, that's we're making this because we know it can make money, so we might as well cheap out and then make as much money as possible by cheaping out. Like, I mean, that's,
and those movies do really well at the box office, too. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, they all do horrible critically, but they make hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, dude, I researched it for Alvin and the Chipmunks, and it's like, they make those movies on just like a very low budget, as low as they can, and then they just earn millions. Like it's nuts.
Right.
But the other thing is like, okay, so that's for like the lazy, like if you're lazy, if you're money grubbing or whatever. But even if you're not, even if you were coming at it from an artistic perspective, when you make an adaptation, there are so many questions you need to ask. You cannot just make whatever you want to make. You have to ask, does this fit in the world? Am I sticking too close to the original? Am I straying too far from the original? Would the characters actually do this? Is this something that people want to see? Is this too obvious? Is this not obvious enough? Like, there's so many questions you need to go in with that it's like it's so I guess creatively binding in a lot of ways that you feel like you're stuck really with what you have, and I don't know. It's tough. Like I absolutely.
Well, if you remember, like back in the 90s particularly, Hanna-Barbera did a bunch of these movie to cartoon adaptations. So like they had Back to the Future, the animated series, Bill and Ted, the animated series, Dumb and Dumber, the animated series. But it's easier to do those because those are just single one-off movies. And I mean, they obviously establish the characters and everything in the movie, but they can build upon that and do more journeys. Whereas if you're adapting a TV show into a movie, you already have these beloved properties that mean a lot to a lot of people and have characters and arcs and whatnot. So when you're trying to turn that into a single important movie, it doesn't always work as well.
Last Airbender.
Yep.
Okay, so our next question, and the one that's gonna lead us into our Adventure Time discussion, is from Yellow Pancake, and he said, on the topic of Adventure Time, considering the show was originally pitched to Nick, how do you feel the series would have been different if it was aired by that network rather than Cartoon Network? This is always a fun question, I think.
I have a hot take on this one. Well, actually, it's not a hot take. It's a pretty popular opinion, but...
All right, go for it, Monsters.
And I think a lot of people are going to have a similar reaction. But the thing is, Cartoon Network needed that show because they were in this really weird gray area right off the tip of CN Real. Flapjack and Chowder were ending, which weren't exactly the most popular things after the cartoon era. And Nickelodeon didn't necessarily need it because they already had their flagship show. They already had SpongeBob. So if Nickelodeon took Adventure Time, I'm not sure it would have done as well because there have been a bunch of shows that are really artistic and really great, like Harvey Beaks, that have come on Nickelodeon but have fallen against, I guess, abuse by not airing enough and not receiving resources, and so.
Okay, so I see it going one of two ways, basically. Either Adventure Time gets, like you said, like the Harvey Beaks treatment, where it's like, it is for a season or two, it gets like a sizable niche fan base, and that's it, and it goes out quietly. Or, because season one, I mean, we'll get to this very much with Slumber Party Panic, but because season one of Adventure Time is what it is, and it's very goofy, and it's very comedy-oriented, and it's very innuendos, and very, like, let's be like a 90s cartoon, kind of, sort of. I could see Nickelodeon pushing harder for it to be like SpongeBob, and for Adventure Time to become SpongeBob 2. I legitimately believe that. Like, Jake could be the second mascot of the network, and the show never, ever, ever gets deep. It never gets that interesting. It sticks in season one territory of goofy stuff, and it gets run into the ground.
Well, if you look at the other Nickelodeon cartoons that were airing at the time, it was like The Mighty Bee, Back at the Barnyard, Fanboy and Chum Chum, Planet Sheen, Tough Puppy. So they were also in a bit of a gray area, apart from The Fairly Odd Parents and SpongeBob.
Well, really, I mean, I want to contest what you said. Nickelodeon did need Adventure Time. They were just stupid and thought that they could live off of one show. Like right. Technically, financially, they didn't, because they could live off of SpongeBob at that time. But they really did need something to break the mold. And I mean, you can see it now with the Loud House, where like they're happy to have their two tent poles and then everything else underneath. Eric, you haven't chimed in yet.
Yeah, so I mean, touching on what you guys said, just in the sense that Cartoon Network never had a SpongeBob, so they really couldn't. Well, not to say they never had a SpongeBob. Like Powerpuff Girls was pretty much their SpongeBob for a long time.
And then Foster's.
Yeah, Foster's.
They've
had all kinds of opportunities, but at the time, at that moment in time, they didn't really have, like, any kind of success. Like, we all know how C and Real did and that kind of stuff. They had total drama, but that was, Canadian.
They had a lot of stuff
syndicated.
they had a lot of stuff in its infancy, stuff that wasn't incredibly popular yet. Like even like Total Drama did get popular, but it wasn't that popular in its first season or in the beginning of the first season.
Yeah. And so I think the reason Adventure Time did kind of flourish on Cartoon Network and grow from its initial standpoint is because, it brought so much success for the network that they kind of put all of their trust in the people who were working on it. And just in the sense that there's so many people from Adventure Time, and I don't want to give just credit to Adventure Time because a lot of these people also came from Flapjack. So I want to give credit where it's due there. And also, I feel like the network just put a ton of trust in those people to continually, bring their network success. I mean, obviously, other shows came along in that period of time. Steven Universe came along. Teen Titans Go came along. So, Adventure Time...
Much later, though. Much later.
Season
6-ish of
2013.
Yeah. So, I mean, but for a while, Adventure Time was the flagship show that they could rely on and they could kind of put their trust into. I think Nickelodeon, I mean, we've all talked about it. It already had SpongeBob, and I don't want to say that they wouldn't give it a chance at all. It could have very well been successful because I don't think Cartoon Network as a channel would have drawn more people to Adventure Time than Nickelodeon as a channel, so to speak. But in the same sense that I don't think Nickelodeon would have as much trust in letting the writers and artists kind of branch out with different topics, different stories, different, deeper, underlying things, just because they had their most trust in SpongeBob's format and how that benefited for the network.
I mean, I also just think it would have been in a scenario where it was the wrong place at the wrong time. Because, I mean, just to kind of form a parallel here, The Legend of Korra started around that time, and that show is similarly complex and has, arcs and storylines, even though Adventure Time isn't as much like that in the beginning. But that show got horribly mistreated too, and I think Nickelodeon at the time definitely did prefer short-form comedic cartoons over long-form narrative storytelling.
But Adventure Time isn't that either. I mean...
Well, yeah, Adventure Time is still, for the most part, 11 minutes, but...
by season 7, it's kind of become that. But even, up to season 6, it's not. It's not long-form storytelling. It's long-form storytelling in that you get a tiny bit of story in, 4 episodes across 30 of them. But it's
true.
I mean, I don't know. The thing is that everyone has the, Nick would have mistreated it. And, that's probably true. But there is also the thought that, Adventure Time was pulling 2.5 mil for the premiere episodes, 1.85, mid 1.8s around there to 2 millions for their episodes in season 1. And the thing is, Nickelodeon will bite at ratings like that. We know for a fact that if they weren't getting SpongeBob ratings, they're dumped. But that's not quite SpongeBob ratings, but I mean that kind of is
yeah.
So maybe Nickelodeon would have seen that, and then. Yeah, we know Nickelodeon does tend to trend against the action and more towards the comedy, but they have had shows. I mean, they had the original Avatar that they took a huge chance on and wasn't anything in their wheelhouse and did great. So it's hard to say. I mean, I do think that in general, just historically, Nickelodeon has been the more kiddie of the two networks anyway. So I don't think that it would have ever gotten as mature as it did, but maybe we would have ended up with something not too dissimilar. Maybe we would have ended up with something that didn't get really annoying in season 6 in Existential. I don't know. It's my hot take. All right. So before we move on to the Adventure Time discussion, we are going to talk about the next 2 upcoming discussions we've got going on. So next week we have Monsters.
Yes. So we mentioned this briefly during last week's episode. The next podcast, we will be discussing the Rocko's Modern Life episode, The High Five of Doom, versus the Camp Laszlo episode, Beans Are From Mars.
And that's perfect timing too, because you could get your free trial of Boomerang and watch the Camp Laszlo episodes, and then your free trial of Nick Splat and watch your Rocko episode. It's like we planned it, but we had no idea.
Yeah, we had zero idea.
Nope. So that's coming next week, and then in 2 weeks, we've got something coming. So we joked about it last week, but we decided to bite the bullet, and we're going to do it. We're going to do Reanimated, the Cartoon Network TV movie from
2006,
the CN Real era,
yeah.
And the Out of Jimmy's Head episode, Sick Day. Really, we could have picked any episode, but not all of them are available. We happened to find it on a website of questionable virtue, but it exists out there if you want to see it. It has something to do with the roller coaster at the theme park that Reanimated takes place at. So, and I mean, it's the same show. I don't know. This is the first time we're going to be really covering like an adaptation, and I think it'll be interesting. Also, both of these things are just completely awful. So if you want to hear us and possibly a third person get dragged into just complete misery, stay tuned in 2 weeks for that.
Yep.
Yeah, have fun with that one, guys.
Yeah, dude, I watched a clip of Reanimated the other day, and they do surgery on him in the mascot costumes.
Yep.
There's a loop on YouTube. It's like a 10-hour loop of Jimmy getting hit by that train, and it looks like the worst effect ever. And that's the entire hinge of the franchise. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if there's one of those really like dark and serious fan theories about Jimmy and how he's actually like hallucinating.
In a coma.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody like cared about the show enough to do that.
You're right. You're probably right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right.
Love you, Jim Samples.
So moving on from that madness, we have 2 good episodes, I think. Right?
I agree.
I'm actually leaning towards more meh on both episodes.
Ooh, all right. So, we have the episode Slumber Party Panic from Season 1 of Adventure Time. Episode 1. Yes, it's Episode 1. Listen, I don't care about your production order, because in production order, Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil are not back-to-back, which doesn't make any sense. So, it's the first episode. I know I was a stickler with Teen Titans, but I'm going to say... At least, I mean, look, it's a first episode, right?
Yeah. It's like in the top 5, 3.
Top 5 of first episodes.
We'll give it some leniency.
Yeah. But no, I get why people think Enchiridion, and I mean, it is the first in production order, but it's just the production order doesn't make sense to me. It just literally seems like a production order instead of like an intended order. Mm-hmm. But either way, Slumber Party Panic is one of the first episodes, and the early Season 3 episode From Bad to Worse. So, Monsters, since you are our Adventure Time noob, you haven't seen that much of Adventure Time.
Well, I've seen, in total, I've probably seen about 3 seasons worth of episodes.
Oh.
Again, it was just a long time ago.
Okay. And you guys don't know this, but Monsters actually just woke from a coma, like right before we started this podcast.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was frozen.
you were hit by a train.
I'm the Avatar, if you didn't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
But all right, you give us a rundown of Slumber Party Panic.
So in Slumber Party Panic, there's a zombie apocalypse, and Finn has to try to avoid the people in Candy Kingdom from noticing that they're zombies, or else they'll blow up.
Okay. And Eric, you want to give us a rundown of From Bad to Worse?
Yeah, so From Bad to Worse is very much like Slumber Party Panic. The zombie serum, or the zombie disease infecting other candy people, has once again come back, thanks to Cinnamon Bun. So, basically, Finn, Jake, Lumpy Space Princess, and Lady Rainicorn have to come up with different solutions to the issues, and like the title suggests, things do not go too well.
Right. So the biggest kind of difference between these two episodes, well, I mean, I would argue the biggest difference between the two episodes is the tone, but the biggest tangible difference is that Slumber Party Panic is about like diverting the candy people's attention, whereas in From Bad to Worse, the candy people are already all zombies. It's more about like desperately finding a cure.
Last man standing.
Yeah. And on the note of that tone, like this is why I wanted to talk about these two episodes, because listen, Adventure Time is about to end, and Adventure Time is a show that is not the same show. Like, you know, you look at it from 3 seasons. Like, any 3 season span, you're not looking at the same show, really. And from Slumber Party Panic to From Bad to Worse, it like, you can tell that the show values different things in each of these episodes.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest difference I can notice between Slumber Party Panic and From Bad to Worse, aside from, like, a writing perspective, is just the tone. Like, where Slumber Party Panic deals with a serious issue, it mostly has fun with it and kind of, you know, allows the characters to be silly and goofy and, you know, values individual character interactions and stuff like that. From Bad, not to say that the later series doesn't value that kind of stuff, but From Bad to Worse is mostly just a much darker turn where it's more foreboding and kind of off-putting in its tone, in terms of, yeah,
it's got like a thriller vibe. I don't necessarily want to say horror, but it's kind of like thriller.
Much higher.
Let's see what you did there.
Well, the stakes are higher, but at least from my point of view, I thought Slumber Party Panic had more tension, because at every turn you felt like Finn could reveal this and every single person in Candy Kingdom could blow up. But with the other one, pretty much what I remember most from it is just Lumpy Space Princess, Jake, Finn, and Lady Rainicorn trying out different concoctions on a group of zombies.
Well, so, like, that's the thing, is that, I mean, in a way, Slumber Party Panic is darker in that, like, the entire cast will explode. Not the entire cast, but most of the cast will explode if this is found out. And you know, Finn will break the royal promise, and they'll have to deal with the Gumball Guardians, which are... like, it's a running gag in the series. The Gumball Guardians are always entirely useless. They never, ever, ever do a single thing useful. They completely fail to protect against Goliad and, like, literally everything that happens. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, so, like, technically it is, but it's more cartoony because it's like they're gonna pop. Like, they're pop if they're scared.
Yeah, like the way that they show the Gravedigger was like a funny cutaway.
Right, whereas in From Bad to Worse, it's like they're zombies, and they're not necessarily 100% serious zombies. They get puffy lips at one point, but it's still treated as like a zombie plague, which is a little darker than, like, you know, comedic candy people blowing up, basically. I mean, people blowing up is dark, but, like, candy people blowing up is not quite as dark.
Kind of like a sad sense of, like, darkness. Like, at one point, Finn is scrambling around trying to come up with the serum. Jake is locked in the shower trying to protect himself from Lady, and Finn is just like, all right, Jake is probably going to turn into a zombie. And it's just kind of like it's a little moment, but it's such a harsh, like, realization for Finn to just acknowledge, like, out loud, like, all right, my brother is probably going to be a zombie, but I need to, like, get my life together and figure something out.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's in Slumber Party Panic. I mean, and again, I've seen this episode a ton of times. I've seen From Bad to Worse a decent amount of times, but Slumber Party Panic, I must have seen like 10 times. Because it's, you know, it's like the first episode. You show someone the show, and you show them that episode first, and then you've seen it. So, but to me anyway, and you tell me, Monsters, since you haven't seen it in a while, does it feel? It feels to me like there's not a slight chance that this episode is going to end any other way than Bubblegum finding the solution and everyone's going to be fine. Like, whereas,
of course,
like that, it feels, it's more of the story is about Finn comedically diverting the attention of the candy people rather than the tension of the story being about, are they going to be able to stop this? Which is what the tension of the story is in From Bad to Worse.
Right, and I'm really glad that you picked these two episodes too, because it really does show some progression within the series. Obviously, like you mentioned, Slumber Party Panic is one of the first episodes, and it feels very much like classic Adventure Time. with the catchphrases when he goes like mathematical and they say, "What time is it? Adventure time?" And like just the randomness and bizarre nature of it, especially with the people exploding. And then, also the From Bad to Worse is more mature. It's the stakes are higher. It's a bit less comedically in tune and more straightforward.
Well, like Eric said, the little moment of Finn realizing Jake is going to turn into a zombie. Now Finn can reverse that, but that's not gonna, he's gonna turn into a zombie regardless. Like, this is gonna happen, and he's sweating over it. And then there's a great moment, my favorite moment in From Bad to Worse, where Jake is in the shower. So Jake runs around, his hand gets infected. He runs around stretching himself, and he's saying he can go on forever, and then he tells Finn he can't, which we know because that was a whole episode, The Limit. And then he runs into the shower and he fills the shower up with his arm, and there's a great reveal of his arm uncoiling to reveal the face, and there's even like a shock cord. That was like my favorite, and there's nothing like that in Slumber Party Panic. Like, there's no, I guess, like interesting cinematography or reveals or anything like that in Slumber Party Panic, because that's not the show that Slumber Party Panic is.
Yeah, I thought the ending of From Bad to Worse was more clever than Slumber Party Panic's, because playing into the random thing, it's just like with the Guardians are just like, or Princess Bubblegum is like, oh, the solution was 4 all along. But like, I thought the science thing with the rat was more interesting.
Yeah, so that's another great comparison. In Slumber Party Panic, the big reveal, the solution, it's a dumb joke. Like, it's a lol so random, like, oh, it's 2, what's 2 plus 2? Whereas it was actually a clever solution. I don't remember if it got. I think it fooled me when I first watched this episode. With the science is the answer, or whatever Bubblegum says, and it turns out to be Science the Rat. I don't think I pieced that together the first time I watched it. Did you remember that, Monsters?
I didn't.
So that
got you off guard? I had seen this episode in the past.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Eric? Do you think it was a surprising twist? Or?
I think by the point, because I kind of already jumped in on, like, when she's trying to say it, and then when Science is, like, tapping against the glass and Finn notices, I feel like at that point in my head, I was like, all right, there's something connecting the rat to, like, whatever is going on in the story.
I guess I'd also say that in a lot of ways, From Bad to Worse is realistic, quote unquote, versus Slumber Party Panic, where, like, okay, their solutions are, let's mix a bunch of chemicals together and throw it at the zombies. And, like, realistically, if you just mash a bunch of chemicals together, you're not going to come up with a solution to anything. Like, that's not how science works. Now, granted, Science the Rat does that technically, and of course it's a rat solving a science problem, so that's not realism, but it's treated, the way the solution is treated a lot more seriously and a lot more realistically, quote unquote, than anything in Slumber Party Panic. But I will say, and I don't think, well, I'll see what you guys say, Slumber Party Panic is the funnier episode.
I agree.
Yeah, part of my problem with From Bad to Worse was in terms of the humor, so I definitely agree with you in terms of Slumber Party Panic being the funnier episode, because I feel like so much of From Bad to Worse is simply situations going bad to worse, but there's no... Finn and Jake are kind of blank slates throughout most of the episode. Like, until those later moments where Finn does start to react and stuff, during the serums and sequences, they just kind of sit there and watch things happen. So I feel like a lot of humor is kind of missed. And this is a problem I have with storyboard artists, Samvlay's iPhone in general. Just because I'm a nerd and I know all the different storyboard artists on Adventure Time, is there's very much like just situations occurring and very little attempts at humor based on character interaction or character reaction in general.
The jokes that I remember from Bad to Worse are, I mean, there's the puffy lips joke with LSP, and I think, honestly, and I don't know that this is a fair criticism or not, but I think I've just seen enough of LSP over the course of the show that I can't find her funny anymore.
Yeah.
Like, do you get that feeling, Eric?
Yeah. LSP is probably one of my lesser, like, characters I actually enjoy, just in the sense that she was a breakout character, but based on, like, her vanity and, you know, self-appreciation, stuff like that, but it got to... I don't want to say it got to a point because there are really interesting episodes based around her as time goes along.
Her in Elements.
I think Bad Timing is great. I think Elements is great. I just think there's other episodes like The Prince Who Wanted Everything, and there's just it feels like there's some appearances where she is just her base appearance, which is her vanity, and it gets to be not fun after a while.
I mean, I think it is. It's like Lemon Grab to an extent, where it's like most of the joke of LSP is from her first appearance, from, you know, Trouble in Lumpy Space, where it's like, oh my god, she talks like this, and it's the creator of the series voicing her, and she's so vain, and she's so stupid, and she talks like a valley girl, and she looks ridiculous, and she's always talking about her lumps. Like,
yeah.
You know, and that I thought that was funny at first, and I mean, hey, it's season 3, so I'm sure the joke wasn't necessarily worn out by that point, but just for me, having seen so much of the series, like, listen, I found Gotcha to be a really funny episode the first time I watched it, but now it's just like, oh my god, I don't want to see this anymore. Like, you know, the joke is that she thinks that she's hot and Finn has no idea what she's talking about. Like, that's funny the first time, not funny. But anyway, that's like the big source of humor in From Bad to Worse, from my memory, the lip stuff. Which is like, you know, if you know LSP, you know the joke that she's going to go run out and get it is funny. Or you know that's what's going to happen. I did find it funny how the lips are all like lumpy and gross on her. Like, she gets it and then she's still like really ugly. I thought that was kind of a funny punchline to it all. But other than that, I mean, the jokes about like I don't know that it's necessarily funny, but I did really like the bit with Jake running around away from his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite part.
But otherwise, none of the other jokes really kind of stick out to me. Whereas in Slumber Party Panic, okay, so there's
the first line where she says 3 drops of explosive diarrhea.
Yep. And that's Adventure Time season 1 for you. 3 drops of explosive diarrhea. No, no, but like that's the thing is that and we were kind of getting to this, but that season 1 of Adventure Time, and specifically season 1, not even season 2. Season 2 grounded itself a little more. Season 1 of Adventure Time was lauded, was described as like, oh man, it's like a classic Cartoon Network show. It's like 90s Cartoon Network. It's like the cartoons, because it ran so much on bizarre, insane logic, like and adult humor. It's like, you know, jokes about what's his name, Mr. the Muffin, Cupcake Man,
Mr. Cream Puff.
No, the Cupcake guy.
Mr. Cupcake.
Oh, how could I forget that? You know, him removing his wrapper, and then they're like, I didn't know he was dark chocolate, or like they say something like that, or I didn't know he was chocolate. You know, there's that joke. This Jake plays 7 Minutes in Heaven with Lady Rainicorn
in a closet, yeah.
And then he comes out eating like a Danish or like some sort of pastry, and I'm like, is this like a reference? Like, is there a dirty joke in here? Like, I don't even know.
One joke I really liked was when Finn was like, "Tree Trunks, get your hot buns in here," and she was holding some hot buns. And
that's the only time Tree Trunks is in the episode too.
Yeah,
she disappears.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And From Bad to Worse. Remember how they throw the graveyard digger into the window, or like the flying zombie does, and then he's basically gone until the very, very end.
Well, so that's the thing. Not to divert, but just that is the thing I will say about Slumber Party Panic, is that it's so much less consistent in terms of its like art, and in terms of its like the characters are different in every scene. Like, there's different candy people. Yeah. Tree Trunks disappears. The layout of the room itself isn't even like very clearly established. Like, Manfred is there sometimes. Like, it's early season 1. It makes sense. But in the Creeps, or it's not the Creeps, that's the partner episode. In From Bad to Worse, it's so much more consistent in its boarding, in like its cinematography, basically. Sorry to nerd out. But back to the comedy. But yeah, no, that was season 1 of Adventure Time, is that it was like kind of risque humor. It was randomness, like the whole, you know, we're going to come up with a complicated math problem. Lol, JK, it's 2 + 2. You know, it was that. It was like, you know, diarrhea and fart jokes. The episode ends on a fart joke. that's season 1 of Adventure Time, but it's also kind of clever. Like I love the joke about, do you prefer chocolate or fudge? And Jake's like, well, I'm a dog, so both of those will kill me. And it's like, that's funny. Like how he says it is funny. One thing I will always love about season 1 of Adventure Time is Finn's eyes actually being eyes in certain scenes.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that, man.
Really?
I hate it. Yeah. I might just be reiterating off of Pendleton Ward now. I get why you guys like it because it's more expressive, obviously, than the dotted eyes we're used to, but it just feels so inconsistent with the way we perceive Finn. Just in the sense that Pendleton Ward once said, I think it's in the Art of Ooh book, that he wanted to keep the dotted eyes on Finn at all times just because it made the audience able to connect with him more, so to speak. Just because, that blank face, it makes the audience able to put themselves in Finn's place more. So I feel like every time I see like the bulging eyes and stuff like that, it just so takes me out of the character.
Do you feel that way about Jake's body changing?
I feel like that was more of a gradual. Do you mean in the sense like Jake shape-shifting?
No. The fact that Jake's body looked he's drawn. I mean, I don't know when they made the change, but he's like a kind of like a perfect oval now. Before he had a little bit more of a head definition and his ears stuck out more.
Yeah, it's more of a so from the time I started watching to when I kept watching, that was more of a gradual change. Now, going back and looking at it, it's kind of weird. It kind of takes me out of it. Like, it always sort of feels like imitation Jake to me, just because I've much more, been used to the smaller eyes, the more rounded body, and like chubbier depiction of him. So it's a little weird for me, but it still feels like the character. Mm-hmm. It still feels consistent like the character. It feels like an earlier version of the character, but it doesn't really take me out of experiencing it.
Okay. One thing I do want to mention that we didn't mention before is just that this episode, along with its sister episode, The Creeps, they are like Halloween episodes in a sense. Like, these are not necessarily the most typical Adventure Time episodes, although I would argue that by season 3, there is no such thing as a typical Adventure Time episode. Mm-hmm. But I do want to point that out, that it's not like, my point in saying that the show has changed is not to say that it's become like creepier, but just that the gravitas, it became less random. It became more dark in tone, not in every place, but more serious across the board in general. And this episode is a good kind of indicator of that. And I also will say, if we ever want to return to this, there is also season 6's The Pajama War, which is about a slumber party. There's no zombies, I don't think. It's a little bit more about PB and Finn's relationship, but it's kind of structured the same way, where it's the candy people left to fend for themselves during the slumber party. But that's another one if you want to see how the show changed in another 3 seasons.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, going back to kind of what you said about... This is going way back to what you said earlier, but just touching on how the series has changed in terms of predictability, I feel like that's a bit of a problem I actually had with Slumber Party Panic, just in the sense that I constantly... And again, it's different on rewatch value because I mostly enjoy Slumber Party Panic now for the jokes, like, because I already know what's happening within the story. But in the sense that you kind of know from beginning to end where it's gonna go. Like, it almost works. It's weird to say because obviously regular show didn't start yet, but it very much feels like a regular show story where a relatively simple situation, and this is simple in the world of Adventure Time, a promise is made between 2 characters, one character breaks a promise, and it brings big, like, situations that they couldn't have guessed or predicted or anything like that. and then everything ends up being all right in the end. And I feel like you kind of know where it's going from beginning to end, no matter how kind of wacky or zany of a world it is. I feel like the story is kind of treading on similar waters.
That's a really good point.
I mean, I would have never guessed the Gumball Guardians would pop in and steal Finn. Like,
it's just in the sense, like you said, there's certain characters and parts of the story that are unique and different and interesting, but I feel like part of, what I like about Adventure Time now is the story always goes in a way you wouldn't expect. Like, it usually doesn't have the 3-act structure anymore, where it gives you exactly what you want or what you think is going to happen. In the sense, again, touching on what you said, I couldn't have predicted the Gumball Guardians were going to come out and, make Finn solve a math problem. And that's all funny, but in the sense that there is obviously a story structure in Slumber Party Panic where one character, is building a particular thing to help another thing, and then it goes wrong. Two characters make a promise, but one character is going to break the promise, something's going to go wrong, and then everything's going to go right in the end. Now compare that to, From Bad to Worse.
From Bad to Worse is like, narratively, it's a zombie movie. It's run away from zombies, a friend amongst the group gets bitten, they don't, and that leads to other characters getting bitten. There's even like the classic moment of Finn. We don't necessarily get the impact because Lady Rainicorn does not speak English, but she trusts Jake and then gets deceived by him, and that's like all classic zombie movie. And then Finn comes up with the solution at the end, and I don't know. I feel like that's pretty narratively straightforward versus Slumber Party Panic, which it's about Finn distracting the partygoers, and then it's also about him figuring out how to not tell Jake, who's his best friend. And then even when Bubblegum, comes out, Finn breaks the royal promise, which leads to just, crazy consequences. And then that's the solution of the serum. And I don't know. I feel like that one's the much less narrative, traditionally narrative situation than From Bad to Worse.
Yeah, I can understand that. I feel like it's more in terms of 3 seasons in, and again, I'm speaking mostly from a first-time point of view when talking about this kind of stuff. It's more of, I feel like when I watch the first episode, it's kind of like, all right, I'm engaged in the story. I don't really know these characters yet, but I'm learning about them. From Bad to Worse is kind of more, these characters, you trust these characters, so you're more invested in the actual situations that are going on with them than the actual narrative structure of the story. So
that's true.
I think it's just more noticeable where it's, alright, how Slumber Party Panic is what's going to happen to this situation, and then From Bad to Worse is more what's going to happen to Finn, Jake, Lady, all kinds of stuff like that.
Almost you could cut together like a Slumber Party Panic 2 From Bad to Worse, because From Bad to Worse, it could theoretically, if you change the ending of Slumber Party Panic, it could lead directly into From Bad to Worse, you know what I mean? If everyone got turned into zombies or exploded, and then, PB just gets attacked by them, aside from the fact that LSP is there, it's pretty much the same characters.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, I don't know, it's interesting in that way, in that it is a retread, but it's definitely not in the same, it's not a remake of the episode. It's a revisitation of the story points from Slumber Party Panic. And like I said, they are different utility-wise in terms of Slumber Party Panic is, whether you consider it the first episode or not, it's one of the first episodes, and so part of its utility is to introduce us to the style of humor of the show, the world of the show, Finn, Jake, PB, all these characters. And of course, thanks to recent events in the show, characters like Manfred are suddenly now immensely more important in ways that you'd never ever know. Do you have any idea what we're talking about, Monsters?
A little bit.
Okay. I won't spoil it for the viewers, but just like From Bad to Worse is the Halloween episode. It is intending to be creepy, and it doesn't have to introduce the characters or anything like that. Like you said, it's season 3. To touch on one thing that's like kind of small. I like the name Slumber Party Panic. I don't like the name From Bad to Worse. It From Bad to Worse is like quintessential Adventure Time wordy title. Like, it's kind of clever, like it's interesting, but it's wordy. It's annoying to say.
Yeah. And I feel, I feel like it could kind of apply to any, I don't want to say any episode, but literally you could call Slumber Party Panic From Bad to Worse, and it's the same situation, you know?
Well, the title From Bad to Worse indicates to me like a big comedy of errors, and in a way this is that, because I think the title is mostly referring to when each of them make potions and then each of those just powers up the zombies, even though that doesn't actually like play in that much in the episode. Really, the zombies could have found a way in, regardless of if they could fly. But like, yeah, I mean, Slumber Party Panic, it's like you won't confuse which episode that is unless you think it's Pajama War. I think it's called Pajama War.
Yeah.
Which is possible, but I mean, that's not anything they can know. But yeah, Slumber Party Panic is not annoying to say, even though it's 3 words. So let's get into, we do have some comments from the Discord server. So Yellow Pancake says, I feel a major differences between the episodes is that Slumber Party Panic is about keeping a situation under control, while From Bad to Worse deals with the situation already getting out of control.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with that. That is like kind of what I was saying, where it's just like, it's a sequel episode, basically. It's like, here's what would have happened if Finn had failed to, if PB hadn't come up with the solution in time, or Finn didn't save the candy people. This is like the dark alternate timeline.
Yeah.
And then Gucci Bane says, the way I see things, Slumber Party Panic and From Bad to Worse both revolve around Finn's intuition to try to handle the situation, but they both differ in Finn's execution. Slumber Party has Finn solve the problem based on a simple guess, correctly guessing the number 4, where From Bad to Worse has Finn picking up contextual clues left behind by PB to solve the problem himself. And that is true.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Here's a question for you guys. Which episode do you think Finn is the better hero in?
From Bad to Worse.
Really?
Yeah. No. Actually, I take that back, because it was Science who did. No, it was, now that I think about it, it was Science that did all the work. I mean, he was the one that prompted Science in the end, but Science was the one that did all of the work, whereas he was, had he not said 4 out of his own intuition, then that would have been different.
Eric?
It's tough to kind of compare, because I feel like Slumber Party Panic was more so of a Finn. He was in a tough situation. I mean, not that he wasn't in a tough situation in From Bad to Worse, because he had to protect the kingdom while also having an overarching issue surrounding him, where From Bad to Worse is mostly just he has to protect the kingdom. So I think it's...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think it's more... In terms of... He kind of had more to juggle in From Bad to Worse, because it was just him, in the sense that in Slumber Party Panic, he did have the people around him, and he just kind of had to initiate the groundwork for everyone to kind of take care of it for him. Where in From Bad to Worse, I understand that he made a lot of mistakes and didn't do a lot of, proper groundwork when it came to, figuring out what science was, coming up with different concoctions. Those weren't very broad ideas. I mean, Finn isn't really... He doesn't really think a ton with his brain. He kind of
Especially not at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like it's kind of impressive that he did make it that far and also came up with the solution to cover himself in the serum, risking his own life to help the help others, regardless of whether it would work or not. Because at that point, it was like anything could happen here. Where I feel like Slumber Party Panic, he is making active decisions, but his stupidity of breaking the promise, I mean, he couldn't have known what would have happened, so it really isn't on his fault, but it more brings him into other sticky situations where his stupidity and from bad to worse is more based on his own fear and panic more than anything.
I mean, I guess it is an interesting, because, like, I mean, when you think traditional hero, like, Finn is saving people while fighting bad guys in Slumber Party Panic. Like, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Whereas in From Bad to Worse, he does save people, or he facilitates the saving of people, but via science. But he isn't, like, I mean, he's not that he's not heroic, but it's just not, he's not like, I don't know. It's a weird question. I throw that out there. Here's another question. What did you guys think of the ending From Bad to Worse? I would argue that From Bad to Worse feels a little fillery especially in its ending. I feel like more could have happened in the actual episode if, like I don't know. I feel like the whole, like, using potions on the zombies and the potions not working out well, I didn't find that all that interesting. And then I didn't find the ending. I found the ending to kind of be fluff. Like, I found the best parts when it was Finn, Lady, and Jake trapped in that room, like, and Jake was slowly turning, and, like, there's pressure and all that. Like, I thought that was really cool. But the kind of the stuff sandwiched around it, I don't know. It didn't really do it that much for me. Did you guys get that feeling about the ending?
Yeah.
Because the ending, if you don't know, basically, and you don't remember, which I wouldn't blame you, but after science saves the day, after Finn helps science brew the concoction, and Finn, I guess we didn't bring this up, but Finn pours the concoction on himself and forces the zombies to bite him, which was a clever solution. Like, Finn, I guess, there we go. That is how Finn is probably more heroic in From Bad to Worse, because he's willing to sacrifice himself.
Right. Exactly.
Like, and that's a clever and daring thing to not just say, well, let me just dump this on them and hope that works, but to go with a plan that's more foolproof, but also, like, really dangerous. I thought that was really cool. But then to get into the next bit, it's like, it's only probably about 40 seconds, but it's still like the candy people, like, it's, what is it, National Apology Day or something, or Thank You Day, and then they award a medal to Science the Rat, even though you think they're going to award a medal to Finn, but, like, that's not a...
I was expecting that.
Yeah, like, that's not a good joke.
Yeah.
He's obviously covering something.
It's just kind of like, it just kind of ends with a whimper that way. Like, it's just got, like...
It ends with a whimper, but at least it doesn't end with a fart.
Yeah, exactly. But in the same sense, though, I get where you're coming from with filler, because From Bad to Worse, in my opinion, another thing that leans me more on Matt is I feel like there's a lot of filler throughout. There is about 40 seconds dedicated to Finn, Jake, Lumpy Space Princess, and Lady all mixing potions, and there's no jokes. Like, and that's an issue I have with, again, tying back to storyboard artist Sanvalet's iPhone, is he is so focused on telling anti-jokes within Adventure Time that it's like...
Oh, I've never seen an anti-joke on Adventure Time before.
Yeah, and not to say that anti-jokes are bad, but it's so focused on stuff that tries to be as non-joke worthy as possible. Like, again, people dumping in potions from different angles and different directions and stuff. It's just not interesting, and it's not funny either.
Right. And I mean, you can't say, well, the jokes would have killed the tone, because I mean, there's that whole bit with, like, Lumpy Space Princess's potion and being lips. It's not just like a gag that they it's like a 3-punch of, like, she throws the potion, and then their lips turn puffy, and then she's like, I'm gonna go down and do it, and then there's the end punchline of her lips becoming puffy instead of, like, looking really good. Like, that's a long joke in there. So you could
Right.
very easily put some more subtle jokes in amongst those to make the episode funnier and more interesting while still keeping the tone somewhat more serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the ending definitely was very fillery, and it just kind of left me with like a bad taste in my mouth because it's like, I mean, again, Finn didn't
He still did something.
Yeah, he did something. He kind of almost sacrificed himself to save like the entire Candy Kingdom. So
and to his credit, I mean, PB could have said anything else other than it's like trust in science or whatever. Like she could have been like the rat will save you. Like
yeah,
it's not Finn's fault, man.
Here's one thing I was thinking about. Like, so remember how when they finally figure out and from bad to worse that they have the correct potion when he gives it to Jake and then Jake gets rebitten by zombies?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Now, assuming that Finn goes in there covered in the concoction and the people that are closest in proximity to him bite him and turn back into whatever forms they were in before, wouldn't the zombies behind them in turn bite them?
I mean, you're splitting hairs. My argument would probably just be like, well, Finn dousing himself in this stuff is enough to like. It's more than just like doing a drop on Jake. Like if you bite someone that's like infused with that, by zombie rules, you get infused with it too.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true.
That's a good point, I guess. Well, the funny thing about the ending is that, and I'm sure not alone in this, Adventure Time, like, I'll say a good 40% of the time, ends insanely abruptly. like midline abrupt. I mean, let me think of a good example.
Temple of Mars.
yeah, that's one. Tree trunks? Anyone?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. So to have a whole like somewhere between probably 20 and 40 seconds dedicated to like this like cooldown, it seemed not just excessive by virtue of like, well, this is excessive, but excessive in the scope of Adventure Time hardly ever does anything like this. To have it be so long is unnecessary, very unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it just tying back on what we already talked about, it just seems like a lot of time is dedicated to this little event that is kind of minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Like, again, it's kind of a weird anti-joke again.
Yeah.
But I feel like you could take it out of the episode and you're not really gaining anything from it.
I would argue that this would be a great episode to pull one of those abrupt endings. So you have Finn douse himself. He throws himself to the zombies. And then we get like 2 seconds of everyone like just being fine and being like, good job, Finn. Yeah, like that's it. And then you cut it. Like, or like a narrator being like, and everything went back to normal. Like I feel like that would have been... Or just cut it there. Just cut it. Ambiguous ending. Who knows? Billy and Mandy, baby. No,
Yeah.
Everyone may have died. All right. Do you guys have anything else to say?
Nope.
All right. So, Monsters. Which do you think is the better episode?
I enjoyed myself more with Slumber Party Panic.
Eric?
It's a tough one because they're both not leaning on any spectrum for me, so I might honestly go with From Bad to Worse just because I think the tone is better. I think I'm more invested in, just like you said, it has nice cinematography, it has nice angles, a nice, overarching foreboding tone. And I think I'm much more invested in that kind of stuff. And I think that's something that season 3 really pulled out well with like episodes like No One Can Hear You.
That's one of my favorites.
I love No One Can Hear
It's
You.
one of my favorites of all time. I hope that deer never shows up. Well, I guess I'll have my wish.
Yeah.
You got one chance to screw up my wish, Adventure Time. Do not bring that freak deer back.
And The Creeps was dark on its own. It was mostly jokey, mostly fun. And then
part nightmare fuel.
Yeah, exactly. And this episode is just another. Again, I'm not the craziest about it, but it's another good contribution in just continuing what the series had continued to do so well, which is the darker tone in its third season.
It's interesting you say that. There's a DVD commentary, and right away, like half the audience fell asleep when I said that. No, there's a DVD commentary where Rebecca Sugar is lamenting. I think it's shoot, the episode. Marceline and Ice King singing. I remember you.
I remember you. Yes,
I remember you. Okay. Rebecca Sugar is talking about, I think, that episode, and she's like lamenting in the commentary, like, oh, I should have put more jokes into this episode. Oh man, why didn't I do more jokes here? And like everyone in the room is like, dude, you created one of the best episodes.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? And in that level, I do respect From Bad to Worse that it didn't feel the need to shove a ton of jokes in there. I think more jokes would have been okay. I do respect that. And I fully went into this whole thing thinking like, oh man, the Creeps is gonna, or From Bad to Worse is gonna blow away Slumber Party Panic. It's gonna show how much the show got better in a few seasons. And I do think that it does show that in a few ways, but I actually like Slumber Party Panic more. I think it's a funny episode. Like, I didn't think I'd find it funny, and maybe a part of it is because I've stepped away from season 1 of Adventure Time for as long as I have, and the juxtaposition of like current Adventure Time with season 1 Adventure Time is hilarious. I think. PB talking about having dated one of these people, which apparently continues to be canon, even though it makes no stinking sense that PB of all people would date some random anyway. Right, but like I don't know. I feel like if you compare what From Bad to Worse was going for, which is a more thrillery, dramatic, driving story, to what Slumber Party Panic was going for, which is basically like a kind of a shallow cartoon that's random and is just about, kicking some zombie butt and fooling the candy people to thinking that they're fighting piñatas and like all that stuff. I think that Slumber Party Panic does a better job at being a funny episode than From Bad to Worse does at being a more serious episode. And I respect From Bad to Worse. I don't think it's a bad episode, but watching it again, I do feel like it's a little too dry.
Yeah, I can, just from what we touched on, there's filler moments, there's a lot of non-jokes. And again, it's good that we're comparing them in different ways, because even though it is a sequel episode, they, like you mentioned, they do go for entirely different things.
Mm-hmm.
Slumber Party Panic wants to be a funny, good time, like in 11 minutes. And From Bad to Worse is trying to, raise the tension,
not to interrupt. I will say, one of the things that From Bad to Worse is very sorely missing that could have helped it, and this is something that I'm kind of surprised it's missing from this episode, because Adventure Time loves to do this to its detriment in places, some sort of greater meaning, right? Adventure Time loves its philosophy, loves its like double meaning, and all those, that spiritual, all of the philosophical stuff. There is zero of that in From Bad to Worse. It is a zombie story. There's the clever twist with the solution, but that's it. There's no, and I'm not saying there's a deeper meaning in Slumber Party Panic, because no, there is not. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if it was an allegory for something or other, that could maybe raise it up. I mean, like, you have the episode with Princess Cookie, which I think is probably called Princess Cookie.
Yes.
See, sometimes literal episode titles can be useful, but you have that episode, and it's great. It's great because it means more than it is. Of course, you also have episodes like, I don't want to go into that, but no, but like, I don't know. Do you think, like, I'm not saying that it necessarily needed that, but if it wasn't going to be a funnier episode, and it wasn't going to be the most original story out there, I think some sort of deeper layer, some sort of emotional connection would have been great. Because, like, really, yes, there's like Lady and Jake, and Lady lamenting that Jake is turning into a zombie, but like in some weird way, Finn wanting to tell Jake about the secret in Slumber Party Panic almost comes off as a more like emotional, genuine, interesting connection than anything from bad to worse.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I think from bad to worse, again, its main goal was to base itself off of fear and anxiety rather than logic and thinking. But I definitely could see I could see something like Finn wondering, should I change everyone back, or like are they better off this way? Again, just spitballing ideas there. There definitely is an option for deeper meanings and deeper philosophies. I think what the episode wanted to accomplish more is that anxiety and fear, and I think they definitely nailed that on that regard. But you're kind of right in the sense that in those other bits of filler and not particularly funny moments, they could have had room to squeeze something like that in.
Right. Like for and again, just a spitball, if it wasn't Cinnamon Bun's fault, if it was Finn's fault that everyone got turned into zombies somehow, Finn could have dealt with guilt. Like that, there could have just been. It doesn't have to be the deepest thing out there. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, season 3 was like kind of where Adventure Time started grappling a little more with that sort of thing. It really, I would say probably the turning point for that would be like Frost and Fire. Like, that's kind of where they started to put double meaning into like everything, and they started covering some really weird topics. But yeah, no, I don't know. That's just kind of a thought of just that, like, if it had had one more element, I feel like I could say, you know what, this episode, I like it more than Slumber Party Panic. But no, despite its fart jokes, I laughed at the drops of exploding diarrhea. It's stupid, but I laughed, and it's a great line to open an episode with. Like, you open an episode with that, and it's like, well, where do you go? Well, I guess you go to Tree Trunks' Hot Buns, or Sweet Buns, or whatever. All right, so now, Eric, did you know that we do a game on our podcast?
I have. So I watched the one podcast about Powerpuff Girls. I actually did not make it up to the game part, but I'm excited.
All right. So we intentionally didn't tell you about this, and I have been kept somewhat in the dark as well. For the first time, I let Monsters take the helm here, so don't screw it up. But yeah, no, I don't know entirely what the quiz is going to be. Usually we do descriptions of episodes and then guess the title or guess whether it's reboot or original, but I don't know. What's the rules here, Monsters?
Yeah, so since both of you know quite a bit about Adventure Time, I'm also going to quiz you on episode descriptions that I found on wikis. So here's how it works. For every description that I read, you guys will need to know the episode title and the season it's from. Each of those is worth a point for a total of 2 points possible per question if you get both correct. There's going to be 6, and in the event that there's a tie, I have an extra tiebreaker question. But Pieguy will go first, followed by Eric.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right, so the first prompt is, Finn and Jake get to live like royalty, but soon find the easy life doesn't suit them. Or at least not Finn.
Okay. This is a season... Well, see, if I say it, then he's going to know it. I mean...
Right.
All right, fine. It's season 6... Shoot, it's either 6 or 7. I'm going to say season 6, and the episode's called Furniture and Meat. Actually, no, I'm going to say season 7. I'm going to say season 7.
Season 7, and the episode title is?
Furniture and Meat.
Okay, and then Eric?
I think I was actually thinking something completely different. I'm thinking season 2 and The Silent King.
Well, it's good that you thought different because that's the correct answer.
Woo!
Dang it. Furniture and Meat is the episode where they get rich, or they decide to spend their riches, and then they start acting like jerks.
Yeah. And then, but Silent King is the one where the goblins are super, like, giving and don't even brush their teeth on won't even let Finn brush his teeth on his own.
I remember that episode. Okay. All right, next one, Monsters.
Okay. When Finn finds a porcelain lamb, it transports him into the spirit world, and only the Ice King can help him out.
All right, the episode is called Astral Projection, And it is a season 4 episode with the Ice King Stanky Wizard Eyes.
Okay, and Eric?
It is season 4, and it is called Beyond This Earthly Realm.
That is correct.
Dang it, man.
So the score so far is Eric 4, Pieguy 0.
I got the season right.
Oh, that is correct. I'm sorry. Yeah, you have 1 point, so it's 4-1.
Okay.
Finn and Jake challenge a monster to a fight, but end up battling each other.
Oh, okay. This is the episode Who Would Win, and it's from it's the 100th episode, or it was supposed to be the 100th episode, and that is from season 5.
And Eric?
So it is Who Would Win, but it is season 4.
That's also correct.
Dang it.
Okay, so Pieguy, you have 2. Eric,
Yep.
you have 6.
I feel like such a nerd right now.
Okay, the next
Anytime
one.
you're ready. Okay.
Ice King throws in the towel after another scheme fails.
oh boy. Dude,
I picked that one on purpose.
you monster. Oh my.
Literally. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say, it's called Hot Princess Monster Wife from season 4.
Okay. Eric?
I have 2 in my head right now. All right. I think it is season 2 Loyalty to the King.
Oh.
You guys are both incorrect. The answer is The Party's Over, Isla de Senorita, season 5.
That was a good guess, though. I like yours.
Yeah, because it kind of describes both in a way, you know?
Yeah. The Nice King.
Okay, the next one. Bimo tries to find Finn's missing sock.
Oh shoot. I know this one. I hate this episode. This is the worst episode in the first 4 seasons. It's called Bimo Noir, and it is in season it's the worst episode in the first 5 seasons. It's season 5.
Okay, Eric?
Bimo Noir, and it is season 4.
That is correct.
Dang
season
it!
4.
Wait,
You really hated Bimo
which-
Noir that much, man?
which season?
Season 4.
I hate
Those
Bimo Noir.
seasons are really getting you.
It's the most boring episode ever. I swear.
I'm a sucker for Bimo episodes.
Then you have terrible taste. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, here's the final question. Pieguy, there's no way that you can get back from this, but we're going to go through it anyway. Okay. Princess Bubblegum must rally her forces when the Candy Kingdom is rocked by a massive assault.
This is the episode. Oh god, this could describe like 8 million things, but I'm gonna go ahead and say something big from season 6.
Okay, and Eric?
That is also my answer. Something Big, season 6.
Okay, you're both correct.
Hey, I got one.
So the total score is Pieguy 5, Eric 10.
Woo!
Oof.
I'm sorry, bro.
No, it's no problem. If you had given me this quiz probably about 2 or 3 years ago, would have been easy. You didn't pick any from like the later seasons.
Yeah, well, that was one of my extra ones was from season 8.
Cool.
But yeah.
All right, congratulations, Eric.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I should end the podcast now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with all that said, you can check out Eric at his what is it, a WordPress?
Blog.
His
Yes.
blog? Yep. And his Instagram down in the description. Do remember that next week we are going to be talking about the Camp Lazlo and Rocco episodes, and the week after that, Reanimated and Out of Jimmy's Head.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah. If you want to participate at all, please join our Discord and come talk about it. Come enjoy some good Joe Murray cartoons, and then be there for the mourning of our souls.
Yep.
But thank you very much, Eric. You've been great to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Had a blast being here, talking Adventure Time, and just like talking cartoons in general. It's been great.
Sweet. Oh, one more thing. I am doing a video on the Adventure Time finale over on Nintendo's channel. I don't know when it's gonna be out. That's more up to him. But if you want to like know my opinions on the finale and stuff, it will come at some point. It's just gonna be over on his channel. So yeah, with that, PIEGUYRULZ out.
Catch you guys later.
Bye, guys.